Between 1998 and 2001, in northern Chile, a disturbing wave of disappearances began to spread panic. The missing were all schoolgirls, quiet and unremarkable, aged between 12 and 17. It would take 3 long years for a name to emerge from the shadows. Julio Alberto Pérez Silva, a shared taxi driver. A man with no history, at least on the surface. Chile would then discover, with shock, the existence of a meticulous killer who took advantage of institutional neglect and the social invisibility of his victims to act with total impunity. In today's podcast, I invite you to explore with me the story of this predator with an ordinary face, who became one of the most terrifying criminals in the country's modern history. The desert wind blows over Alto Hospicio, a town of 50,000 people, a forgotten place perched high in the arid hills of northern Chile, near the Atacama Salt Desert. Here, dust covers everything, even memory. We're at the end of the 1990s, and Chile is just beginning to emerge from the brutal military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Between 1973 and 1990, the junta ruled through terror, using intimidation and fear to suppress the population. Students were abducted near university gates, secret executions took place, and political opponents were jailed en masse, plunging the country into darkness and making Chile one of the most repressive regimes in Latin America, much like Argentina. The result was devastating, a country deeply unequal, split between wealthy urban centers and forgotten regions like the far north. Alto Hospicio, a satellite town of Iquique, bore every scar: poverty, unemployment, chaotic development, insecurity, and drug trafficking. People lived in tin-roofed houses, some with no running water or electricity. The state was little more than an illusion. Not surprisingly, the crime rate there was among the highest in the country. To survive, locals consumed and resold coconut paste imported from neighboring Bolivia. But soon a new tragedy would shake the town and its surroundings. It was October 3rd, 2001, a day that would light the spark. Around 2 p.m., Guido, a truck driver, was driving along a rarely used road toward Iquique. Suddenly, he saw a teenage girl on the roadside. She was walking strangely, her face covered in blood. Alarmed, he stopped his vehicle right away and got out to approach her. Terrified, the girl tried to run, but the driver gently tried to calm her down. He noticed she was wearing only one shoe. Her bare foot was injured from walking on gravel. "Señorita, where are you coming from like this?" The man didn't answer. He kept his hands tight on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Barbara's heart began to race. She repeated her question, more desperately this time. "Please, sir, this isn't the right way. Where are you taking me?" Still no answer. Suddenly, the driver pulled off the main road and brought the vehicle to a stop, right in the middle of the desert. He turned toward Barbara. His expression had changed. The kind face was gone. Without saying a word, he reached for a blunt object, a tire iron, and struck her violently on the head. Barbara lost consciousness. When she came to, she was lying on the ground, half covered in dirt and branches. Her body was bruised, her head pounding, her clothes torn. She quickly realized what had happened. She had been raped, beaten, and left for dead. But Barbara didn't give up. Despite the pain, the dizziness, and the blood, she somehow managed to stand up and walk. The driver leads her to his truck, helps her get in, then climbs into his seat and starts the engine. The girl's name is Barbara Nunez, and she is 13 years old. Her rescuer drives her straight to the police station in Alto Hospicio. But given how shaken she looks, the officers decide to escort her to the hospital first. Medical exams reveal that she has a head injury, multiple bruises on her shoulders and chest, and clear signs of having been assaulted. The doctor in charge of Barbara gently insists on knowing what happened. As with the truck driver, she hesitates at first, then tears well up in her eyes and she breaks down. The doctor offers her some tissues and stays at her side until she feels calm enough to speak. She begins to tell her story. "This morning I left the house around 8 a.m. to go to school, like always. While I was waiting for the bus, a taxi driver approached me and offered to take me, since I was running a bit late. I agreed, of course. He seemed nice and I didn't think anything of it. You know, here in Alto Hospicio, the buses don't come regularly. The taxi first heads toward the school, but on the way he suddenly changes direction and takes a road into the desert. Barbara starts to panic, unable to understand what's going on. "Where are you going? This isn't the way to my school." But the man doesn't answer. She then tries to open the door, but suddenly she feels the cold edge of a blade against the back of her neck. After about 30 minutes, they arrive at the barren plains of the Atacama Desert, near an abandoned mine. Barbara sees the man pull out a rope, which he uses to tie her hands. Then inside the vehicle, he assaults her twice. Afterward, he leads her to the edge of one of the mine's pits. In shock and unable to process what's happening, Barbara begins to beg. "Please don't hurt me. I'm begging you. Just take me home." She doesn't even have time to finish her sentence. He pushes her out of the vehicle. By sheer luck, she doesn't fall into the 200-meter deep shaft, but instead lands on a 10-meter-wide ledge. Her attacker then starts throwing rocks at her. One of them hits her on the head, and she loses consciousness. The only thing I remember is waking up several hours later. I had completely lost track of time, but somehow I managed to free my hands and crawl out of the pit. I walked as far as I could. I was terrified he might come back. And then, that truck driver saw me and saved me. The doctor, who has listened carefully, nods slowly with a serious expression. At that moment, Barbara remembers something her attacker had said while they were still in the taxi. He told me, "You'd better stay quiet, or you'll end up like the other 6 girls." I'm the psychopath of Alto Hospicio. At the hospital, the doctor, deeply affected by Barbara's testimony, wants to know more about the man. Any detail that might help identify and arrest him. Barbara doesn't know his name, but she remembers what he looked like. He was older, tall, with graying dark hair, a heavy build, and was wearing a t-shirt with the Iquique municipality logo. He was driving a white car. It's a vague description. It could match a lot of people in the area. However, Barbara remembers one more thing. Hanging under the rearview mirror, there were 2 small plush toys. The cartoon characters Bananas in Pajamas from the Australian show. The doctor approaches the officers and shares everything Barbara has told him. By the end of the day, an alert is issued. All police officers and gendarmes in the region are notified to start conducting road checks. However, the information must remain confidential. If the suspect finds out he's being searched for, he might flee. The next day, October 4th, 2001, a gendarme is checking vehicles on a road between Alto Hospicio and Iquique. A white car approaches. He signals it to pull over and asks for the driver's documents. The man behind the wheel appears completely calm and relaxed. The gendarme takes his ID and vehicle papers. Then he takes a quick look inside the car. And there they are, hanging under the mirror. The 2 little banana plush toys. The officer remains composed. He knows he must not raise any suspicion. He pretends to check the license plate, then returns to the man. "There's a small issue with your car. I'll need you to come with me to the station. Just a routine check." The man, still perfectly calm, agrees to follow without protest. But once at the gendarmerie, the truth is revealed. He's being held on suspicion of sexual assault and attempted murder of a minor. The man looks completely shocked by the accusations. He insists he has nothing to do with it. He's never hurt anyone. "You're making a mistake. I'm an honest citizen." The officers learn that his name is Julio Alberto Pérez Silva. He is 37 years old, lives in Alto Hospicio, and works as an unlicensed taxi driver. Investigators head to the hospital and show Barbara video footage of Julio. She recognizes him instantly. Without the slightest doubt, he's the one who abducted and attacked her. She is absolutely certain. A sample is then collected from the suspect to be compared with the evidence taken from the teenager. The results are unanimous. Julio Perez Silva's DNA matches the samples found in Barbara's intimate areas. He is questioned again, and this time, he offers a different version of events. The day before, when he saw the teenage girl waiting for her bus, she supposedly offered him paid services, and he accepted. "But I didn't hit her. Oh no, that's not my style." According to him, Barbara was a prostitute. For the officers, whether she worked as one or not, it's illegal to have sexual relations with a minor, not to mention the violent beating she suffered. Julio Perez's story seems far from believable. Meanwhile, some officers decide to visit his home. Julio shares the house with his partner, Nancy Boero, and her 6 children from a previous marriage. Among Julio's personal belongings, the officers find the infamous T-shirt with the Iquique municipality logo, as well as newspaper clippings about the disappearances of young girls in Alto Hospicio. To avoid confusion, the officers focus exclusively on Barbara Nunez's case, which is now making headlines in the local press. The suspect's car undergoes a thorough search. A knife is found in the glove compartment, the same one described by the teenager. Up to this point, the authorities have all the material evidence needed to support the victim's statements. But what no one suspects yet is that they have just apprehended Chile's deadliest serial killer. When the press picks up the story of his arrest, some families begin to have doubts and ask questions. "I'm the psychopath of Alto Hospicio. You'll end up like the other 6 girls." This phrase Julio Perez said the day he kidnapped Barbara resonates with many as the first real lead. Who were the other 6 missing girls? That's what we're about to find out. 2 years earlier, it's November 24th, 1999. Macarena Sanchez Jabre, a 13-year-old middle school student, disappears while on her way to school. When she doesn't return by late afternoon, her mother raises the alarm. The officers take her description and send her back home with a vague promise to call if there's any news. Months pass with no sign of the girl until July 2000, when Macarena's mother receives a phone call. On the line, she recognizes her daughter's voice. Mrs. Sanchez nearly faints. "Mom, Mom, I've been kidnapped. I'm in Peru, forced into prostitution. The police must stop searching." The line goes dead. Mrs. Sanchez remains frozen, the phone still in her hand, before hanging up, hoping her daughter will call back. That was the last call from Macarena. After that, her family never heard from her again. On March 23, 2000, 14-year-old Laura Sola Enriquez disappears on her way to school. On April 5, 2000, 16-year-old Catherine Arce Rivera vanishes after leaving high school. 1 month later, Patricia Palma Valdivia, 17, also disappears under similar circumstances. On June 2, 2000, Macarena Montesinos Iglesias, 16, goes missing while waiting for her school bus. The last known disappearance is that of 15-year-old Viviana Garay Moena on June 30, 2000. None of these disappearances trigger serious investigations. From the family's side, there are no outcries, no dramatic crime scenes, just mothers waiting outside the police station, holding hand-copied missing person flyers. The officers barely pay attention to their reports of missing daughters. Social neglect and sexist stereotypes lead many officers to look down on these families. To avoid trouble, they routinely classified these disappearances as runaways. The gendarmes then put intense pressure on Julio Perez Silva for several days to get a confession. They don't hold back. They keep him awake at night, expose him to bright fluorescent light all day, and deny him food and water. On October 7, 2001, 3 days after his arrest, he admits to murdering 3 of the girls, Patricia Palma Valdivia, Laura Sola Enriquez, and Macarena Sanchez Jabre. He says he disposed of their bodies in an abandoned mine shaft near the desert. During his interrogation, he gives precise details. He denies nothing. He recites the crimes like a litany, as if recounting a routine. "Why did you kill them?" "They got into my taxi willingly. I didn't force them. And then I couldn't stop." This chillingly simple answer reveals a detached, cold mind with no inner conflict. The next day, authorities go to the site indicated by the suspect. Under the watchful eyes of journalists who have been alerted, human remains are found more than 100 meters deep in the mine shaft. 2 days later, Julio confesses to killing the other 3 girls: Macarena Montesinos Iglesias, Catherine Arce Rivera, and Viviana Garay Moena. He provides the locations of their bodies, dumped in garbage sites around the city. Authorities launch searches and ultimately recover 4 decomposed bodies, not just 3. The news explodes in the press. In Alto, Hospicio and its surroundings, it's a tragedy. The girls didn't run away as the police had confidently claimed. They didn't leave to work as prostitutes. They were murdered by a local man, a quiet man above suspicion, a polite and reserved taxi driver. This could have gone on for years if not for the incident with Barbara Nunez that triggered everything. Julio Perez Silva's trial opens in 2004 in Iquique. He is tried for 14 murders, plus the rape and attempted murder of Maricela and Barbara. The courtroom is full. Families, journalists, activists, all present. Across the country, people follow this historic trial closely. In the defendant's box, Julio never lowers his eyes. He looks like any middle-aged man, with slightly long black hair and a very ordinary face. Throughout the 2-month trial, he listens to the charges without emotion, never flinching or uttering a word of apology to the victims' families. The testimonies are heartbreaking. Psychiatric experts confirm his lack of empathy and manipulative nature. But no mental illness lessens his responsibility. Psychiatrist Ricardo Capdeville, who evaluated him in 2001, says at the trial, "We are dealing with a man who feels no remorse. He shows no pain or empathy. He has full awareness of his actions but no regret." The verdict falls. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole. He will never leave prison. He becomes the first Chilean prisoner sentenced to this penalty for a series of murders. He narrowly escapes the death penalty, abolished just a year earlier. For criminologist Maria Elena Larraín, Julio Perez Silva is the very example of an integrated psychopath. He didn't kill out of madness. He killed because he needed to, and because social and institutional circumstances allowed him to do so without being caught.